So how do I do it? Give enter to repeat the line command, and I'll give @. @ stands for last point. Since AutoCAD memorizes the last point, I can access that point simply by inputting @ at the first point prompt. So I have started a line from this endpoint. Suppose I want to draw another line exactly at a distance of 25 units leftward from this endpoint. So how do I do it? So I'll give enter to repeat the line, and I'll give @ 25 less than stands for angle 180 degrees. So I have started such a line. I have used polar coordinates to define it. You are already familiar with the polar coordinate entry method. Now this endpoint is the last point which is defined. And based on this point, I can plot any other point by starting with @ sign. Suppose if you want to start a line exactly from this endpoint at a distance of 30 units rightward. That means I want to make this point as the base point or reference point. In such a context, you can use from point option. Let's see that. So I'll give line command, and I'll shift right click to access the OSnap menu, and I'll go to from point option. So when you use from point, it'll ask you for a base point. Base point is nothing but the reference point. So I'll use this endpoint as a reference point. Now it'll ask you for the offset. Offset is the distance from the base point, and that distance can be defined either by using relative or polar coordinate entry methods. So I'll give @ 30 less than 0 because I want to move 30 units in the rightward direction. Polar coordinate method. Just give an enter. Now I have started a line exactly from this point. From point can be used to make any desired point on the screen as the base point or reference point, based on which you can plot any other point at a specific distance using relative or polar coordinate entry methods. You can also input distance in absolute values. I'll show you an example. I'll draw a line from this point, and I'll turn the ortho mode on, give a length of 120 units. Next, I want to draw a line at a distance of 45 units from this endpoint, and I want to give the distance in absolute values. So before drawing the line, you can bring the origin to this particular point. How do you do that? For that, I'll just click on this icon. It is called World Coordinate System icon, and that is a default coordinate setup in AutoCAD. And you just click on the origin point, turn the ortho mode off, and I'll bring the origin to this particular endpoint. Just click there. Now you have brought the origin to this point. Next, I can give the values in absolute coordinates. So I'll click on line. When I'm asked to give the first point, I'll give 45,0. So I have started a line from the required location. You can also align the coordinate setup on the inclined lines. For example, I'll draw a line from this endpoint to this endpoint. Now it's an inclined line. I would like to draw a circle at a distance of 25 units from this endpoint along this line. So in that case, you can click on the UCS icon, bring the origin onto this point, then you just click on the x-axis, then you can just click on this endpoint to align the coordinate setup onto this inclined line. Now you can click on circle command, take center radius. When you are asked to specify the center point, you can give the value 25,0. Now this circle is at a distance of 25 units from this endpoint. Hence, you can align the coordinate system on various objects, and such a coordinate system is called a user coordinate system or UCS. Next, we will see mid between 2 points option in the OSnap menu. So I'll draw a rectangle using the rectangle command, and I'll take a copy of it using the copy command. I'll select objects. This is the base point and this is the second point. Suppose I want to construct a circle exactly at the midpoint of the line connecting these two endpoints. In that case, you can use the mid between 2 points option. So when I'm asked to give the circle center, I can go to mid between 2 points option, and I can choose this as the first point of the mid and this as the second point of the mid, and I'll get the required center point at the precise location. Next, we will see the concept of point filters in the OSnap menu. First of all, I'll define point filters. Point filter in AutoCAD is defined as the method to define a point by extracting X, Y, and Z coordinates from existing points. I'll demonstrate it with an example. Suppose I want to create a rectangle using a line command. So I'll start with a line, and I'll pick this as a first point. My ortho mode is on, and this is a second point, third point, and this is the fourth point. But if I simply go and make a pick to define the fourth point, you know that it won't be accurate. So this is when you make use of point filters. I'll just turn the ortho off. You know that X coordinate of this point will be the same as X coordinate of end of this. Similarly, Y coordinate of this point will be the same as Y coordinate of end of this. You can communicate this information to the software using point filters. So I'll just shift and right click, and I'll go to point filters, and I'll select dot x. Dot x stands for x coordinate of. Now it is waiting for a point input. I'll choose this endpoint. So the x coordinate is extracted from that endpoint. Now it will ask you for y and z coordinates. So again I'll go to shift right click, go to point filters, and I'll select dot y of y coordinate of this endpoint. So x and y is defined. Now it will ask you for a z. Line is a three-dimensional object. It will also ask you for an z coordinate. In point filter, the last coordinate can be defined by inputting a numeric value. So I type 0 because I'm working on the xy plane and just give an enter. So this point is precisely defined. Now I'll just click on close to complete the rectangle. Next, I would like to construct a circle right at the geometrical center of this rectangle. So I'll click on circle command, choose center radius method, and I'm asked to define the center point. Conventionally, you construct two diagonals and you find out the point of intersection. But if you know point filters, you don't have to do that. But instead, I'll shift right click and I'll go to point filters and I'll choose dot x. Dot x means x coordinate of. It is waiting for a point input of mid of this line or mid of this edge you can pick. Because you know that x coordinate of mid of this line or mid of this line will be the same as x coordinate of the geometric center of the rectangle. Because these 3 points are lying along the same vertical line. Similarly, I'll go to shift right click, point filters, dot y of, y coordinate of, mid of this edge or mid of this edge I can choose. So I'll click on this mid. Now it will ask you for z. Z I'll give 0 because I want to work on the xy plane. The moment you define the z coordinate, that point is defined. Now just pick to define the radius. So this is how you make use of point filters. It's very useful in 2-dimension as well as in 3-dimension in AutoCAD. Next, I'll introduce you to object snap tracking. It is in fact a replacement for point filters. You can see object snap tracking button very close to OSnap button, and it can be controlled using the F11 function key. When you press F11, OSnap tracking will get activated. When you press F11 once more, it will get disabled. I'll illustrate it by constructing a simple rectangle. So I'll draw a line from this point and I'll turn the ortho mode on, and the next point I'll click here, next point on top. In order to pick the next point, I'm going to make use of the object snap tracking. So I'll disable the ortho button. I take the cursor onto this endpoint, okay, and I'll move the cursor away from this endpoint. Now you can see a green tick mark at this endpoint, which means that I have tracked that point. And if you want to remove tracking, and move the cursor away from that endpoint. To get tracking as well as to remove it, you can take the cursor onto the same endpoint. After you track that point, when you move the mouse, you will see a temporary construction line, which is this particular green dotted line appearing. And if you click a point, you will be clicking that point anywhere on this line. This will eliminate the usage of an additional construction line. So that is the main advantage. Now I'll click a point here. Now I've got that point exactly on that vertical tracking line. I'll undo this. Now I'll track this endpoint once more, and I'll track this particular endpoint as well. Now when I move the mouse leftward, I will get the point of intersection. Now just make a click there. I've got that point of intersection. Now you can close it. So it is similar to point filters, but you might find it more convenient than using point filters. But point filters has got more extended application in 3-dimension. Next, I'll construct the same circle right at the geometrical center of this rectangle, and I'll try it using tracking. I'll go to circle, center radius method. I'll keep the cursor over here. I've got the tick mark. I've tracked that point, and I'll keep the cursor over here. I've tracked that point as well. And when I move the mouse, I'll get the point of intersection. Just make a click there and click to specify the radius. So this is all about temporary tracking. It's really easy and convenient, and it eliminates the usage of temporary construction lines. In AutoCAD, whenever you want to create construction lines, we have 2 new objects which is meant for that. These objects can be taken from the draw panel. So click on the drop down in the draw panel, and here you have a ray as well as X line. Conceptually, the ray is similar to the one which you have learned in geometry. It starts from a point and it goes towards infinity in all directions. And X line is also called construction line, and it starts from infinity and ends at infinity. That means it is an infinite line, just like an axis. So let us see ray. When I click on ray command, it will ask me for a start point. I'll pick a start point and a through point. Then a through point. The through point prompt will be a recurring prompt. You can pick as many through points as you want. And when you pan the screen, you can't find the end of this ray because it is going towards infinity. I'll erase this. Similarly, when you take construction lines or X lines, you can make axis. For the X line, you are asked to define a point and a through point. The same prompt sequence which you have got in the case of ray. And I'll pick a through point here, then one more through point here, Okay. And when you pan the screen, you can't find the end point because it's infinite in nature. That's a property of an X-line. Ray and X-line can be used to create construction lines. Let's see a simple application. Suppose I want to create an elevation of this plan. I'll take, for example, a ray. So I'll click on ray. It'll ask me for a start point. So I'll pick the start point here, then a through point. Next start point is this, then through point is this. Then I'll give an enter to repeat the ray command. I'll pick the start point as this and through point as this. Again, I'll give enter to repeat the ray command. This is the start point, this is the end point. I'll do the same. And these are all just projection lines. Then I would like to construct a line which indicates the ground level. So I'll choose an X line. I'll shift right click and choose nearest to get a closest point. Then a through point it will ask you. Since the ortho mode is on, if I pick a point rightward, my through point will be a perfect horizontal line. Now I would like to copy this line. So I'll go to copy. Base point, I'll click here. Second point, when I'm asked, I'll keep the cursor in the upward direction and I'll give a distance of 60. It indicates the floor level. Then I'll give another distance of 360. Let it indicate the roof level. Then I'll give another distance of 450. Okay, so I've constructed a number of lines to indicate different levels in the elevation. Then I'll go to trim command. Trim command will let you trim a portion of an object. So I'll click on trim. When I'm asked to select objects, I'll just give an enter. And when I'm asked to select the object to trim, I'll go to fence option and I'll pick the first point here, second point here, third point here, fourth one. Then I'll just cross this line because I want to get rid of all the objects surrounding this rectangle. So just give an enter. Once you trim a ray or an X line, the resulting object will be a simple line. When I take the cursor over here, I've got the tooltip that it is a line. We will see more about trim command, ray and X line in the coming tutorials. So that's all about the various precision tools in AutoCAD software.